With such ambitious goals, the most impressive aspect of Star Citizen remains the ships you fly. Each and every shipmaker in-game has a detailed backstory, design language, and company philosophy, which is reflected throughout their ship selection. This video series will take you through the design language, history, ship selection, and odd quirks of each of the major ship manufacturers of Star Citizen. If you would like to stay up to date with the rest of the series, subscribe to this channel. And if you already have, well, I'd like to thank you for sticking with Space Tomato, and for coming to this Tomato Talk. Drake Interplanetary. Diverse, controversial, dangerous, cheap?
Cheapness.
Drake has a lot of adjectives attached to its name, and it's a manufacturer that's not quite like any other. Some find it a little dirty and below them. Others find it charming and upfront. The bottom line is that it is utilitarian, and it tends to take that definition to the extreme, sometimes to the detriment of its passengers. But before we get deep into the Drake style, let's take a look at how they got where they are now. In 2845, the UEE ran a contest requiring entrants to design a ship that could be quickly produced to equip distant home defense squadrons in times of need. The Cutlass was submitted, but ultimately lost. Shortly after, Jan Dredge formed the company Drake Interplanetary with some of the designers of the Cutlass. The name Drake was chosen as a smooth-sounding name specifically for the appeal it might bring to the ships under the brand. This was the first in a long line of money over all decisions that would come to define the Drake Interplanetary brand. The second decision was locating the headquarters of the company on the unorthodox Magnus II, a planet known for its economically embattled nature after a depression caused by the UEE moving out. Another cool decision they made was the ship vocalizer. They definitely went for a voice that could be considered more sexy and stylish than gruff.
Hello and welcome aboard your Drake Interplanetary craft. Your systems are online.
Due to the initial pitch of the Cutlass, Drake was still of the mindset that the Cutlass could be a great asset to private militia groups as a low-cost spacecraft solution. Regions specifically classed as high insurance risks, the Drake board reasoned, would especially welcome an easier way to replenish lost spacecraft. Sales were phenomenal. Within 9 months, Drake had opened 6 off-world factories and had licensed dealerships in 9 systems. In the year following, the company had quadrupled again, and within 5 years, they were competing on the same stage as industry stalwarts like Robert Space Industries and MISC. But they had one problem with their brand image, depending on who you ask. In an undercover job interview, the company CEO Jan Dredge was recorded making a controversial statement about selling the Cutlass Black to known piracy groups. It was a big oof. On April 6, 2947, Drake Interplanetary released a press statement in which they apologized for the comments made by Jan Dredge and announced that she is retiring as CEO of the company. The new CEO, Andon Arden, condemned the use of the ships by outlaws and instituted a policy that all sales associates attend a mandatory training session every year that reviews the company policy alongside local and empire-wide law. Take of that what you will, but with Drake Interplanetary, we know that their philosophy is, what you do with the ships is your business.
What you do with them is it's your business.
Yeah, it's your business.
Now, Back to the design of Drake ships. If you want to know what defines the Drake style guide, it is best summed up here by CEIG dev Josh Coons.
It's not that it's cheap or weak, it's just they don't care about you bumping your head on that stuff, so they don't cover it up with, airbags and nice plastic panels. They pass the savings on to you with manufacturing cost cuts. It's cheap in that regard, yes.
Drake will maybe cut some corners to make sure they can create the most cost-effective ship possible. If you're walking down a hallway, you need to feel like you are in an active construction zone. If there are mechanical bits doing work in the ship, you most likely can see them. These ships embrace the idea of function over form. Girders, rafters, trellis beams, everything structural and functional is exposed in a rather hazardous manner. Small pipes and wires running along the interior and exterior of Drake ships are usually joined by metal ridges and ribbing. The design of these ships is said to be partially inspired by Russian military vessels. With basic shapes, low-cost materials, and easily accessible components and piping, Drake ships often appear very rudimentary and rough around the edge. Drake also tends to provide their ships with rather large rounded engines, with a nozzle often covered in flaps or other metal segments in the cowling. All in all, the design language of Drake tends to be very dark and mechanical. Arguably the most popular Drake ship in the lineup is the Cutlass Black, a fantastic 1 to 2 person multi-role ship with the firepower to dogfight and the space for cargo, vehicles, or other personnel. It's such a versatile ship, it can be said that it takes the role of a smaller version of the RSI Constellation. And that's not even including the variants, the medically equipped Cutlass Red and the Cutlass Blue, geared towards bounty hunting and law enforcement. Both are specifically equipped for very different roles, and you could say they take the roles of the ambulance and police cruiser of the verse. Interesting, Drake seems to be supplying both sides of crime with one spacecraft. The Caterpillar is a strong contender for mid-size cargo hauler of the year. There's a ton of space aboard the ship, and the clamshell-style doors will eventually make it very easy to load and unload cargo quickly. You can also use this functionality to create a bit of a broadsiding master ship, if you have the friends and the firepower. The Buccaneer is a cockpit strapped to 2 engines. The shape of the ship actually reminds me a lot of the Viking from StarCraft. It has twin massive engines and a tiny size to keep it fast and agile. It also has a robust and versatile arsenal to make it competitive in a dogfight. However, the armor is considered paper thin as far as spacecraft are concerned. The Herald is also very much a cockpit strapped to engines. As the starter data running ship, the Herald deserves to go fast, and it most definitely does. If you are looking for a start in the data running career, well, there's not much else you can do with this ship, besides maybe drag racing. While we aren't looking at ground vehicles in this video series, let's touch very briefly on the Dragonfly because there's an important point to consider with this vehicle.
But it was really cool to see that ship come together because I think some of the finish of the exterior of that ship is going to start influencing ships moving forward. So I believe the Vulture looks like it's taking a lot of cues from the Dragonfly. So it's really helping to, that one ship is really helping to sort of really solidify the Drake style on the exterior of ships.
The Vulture is to salvage what the MISC Prospector is to mining. I will have a video on salvage at some point which you can see in the top right hand corner if it has been published at the time you watch this. But the Vulture will most likely be our first experience in salvage. Now, it can definitely be compared to the Venture from Eve, as the designs are similar. However, it is quite clear that the design of the ship was ultimately derived from the Dragonfly. For starters, the concept artist who designed the ship actually was the designer of the Dragonfly as well.
There's another chap that we work with. He's a freelancer. He did used to work for us, and he created the Dragonfly, basically.
You see the introduction of the arms. This is a ship that has to manipulate physical objects, outside the ship, but within close proximity. So you see the introduction of arms here. They're downward.
That all being said, this topic is for the other video that I mentioned previously. The point to take away is that if you're looking to get into salvage gameplay, the Vulture is going to be your best go-to starter ship. Finally, the Kraken, one of the 2 carrier-style ships planned for the game at the time of publishing this video. The Kraken is already known to be a common home base for pirate gangs, but it also gives lawful pilots the ability to cruise the galaxy and tackle large missions together in a multitude of ships. The variant, the Kraken Privateer, will also allow you to host a variety of shops where you can sell goods to passers-by and traveling explorers on the fringes of space. Want to supply vital materials or rare artifacts in remote areas of space? The Kraken is your go-to, unless you want a Banu merchantman. While Drake Interplanetary may have a few problems with its image and reputation, it has proven it can play with the big boys. And regardless of what you think of the designs, there is a market for them. If you want that homey, rustic feeling spaceship that gives you vibes of serenity,
What was that? Did you see that? Was that the primary buffer panel? It did seem to resemble. Did the primary buffer panel just fall off my Gorham ship for no apparent reason? This is the captain. We have a little problem with our entry sequence, so we may experience some slight turbulence and then explode.
Drake Interplanetary. We got your back.
Drake may be the company for you. Robert Space Industries is the utilitarian clean to Drake's more utilitarian, we'll say haphazard style. You can't really talk about Star Citizen ships without mentioning Robert Space Industries. It's literally the official website of Star Citizen, and lesser known, actually acts as a publisher and subsidiary to Cloud Imperium Games, the studio behind Star Citizen. While the company is well known for their spacecraft today, their first product released in 2043 was actually a hyper-efficient battery converter for ground-paced civilian vehicles. But CEO Chris Roberts wasn't happy stopping there. After putting together a fresh team of engineers, the company was able to release a prototype quantum core engine on May 3rd, 2075. From then on, everything changed. You may think to yourself, okay, started a new company, changed space travel forever, solid resume. But we only just got to page 2. After this history-changing invention, Roberts became obsessed with the next big thing, terraforming. And though it would not be achieved by his death in 2108, in 2113 RSI unveiled the Atmo processor, the foundation for terraforming technology. Once terraforming was underway on Mars after years of glacial pace and a major disaster, RSI realized there was a need for a new ship which could transport resources to the new colony on Mars, and thus created the very first commercially available spaceship, the RSI Zeus. Did RSI just do everything back then? Sheesh. The ship was ultimately launched in 2140 after years of testing and tweaking with the help of the new at the time 999 Squadron of the Navy. For those of you who have been following my previous videos, you may remember this is about a century before Argo Technologies was even on the radar. Even though RSI is such an old company, against all expectations and despite the strong competition from upstart manufacturers such as Origin Jumpworks or Musashi Industrial and Starflight Concern, the company still continues to grow its market share. In recent years, none of them has managed to diversify to the same extent as RSI. It has always maintained a philosophy of offering multi-role ships with multiple variants that can dominate their market space due to sheer usefulness. The company does tend to fall short in the military industry, however. While RSI is a big contributor to the rather large Bangle, it suffers from a string of failures when attempting to supply smaller spacecraft to the UEE. Despite this, with all their diversity, RSI needs multiple divisions all scattered throughout the space around Earth. There's the Astro Development Team in New York, Capital Development Team at an Earth Lagrange point. The Engine Development Team is in Moscow. The Experimental Development Team, also known as Skunkworks, is on the dark side of Luna, and the Future Foundation, with location unknown. Much like Drake, RSI tends to have a very utilitarian style. Unlike Drake, however, they are a bit more conscious of safety and tact in their design. That's not to say they don't drive owners crazy in some of their designs when it comes to the cockpit views and the dreaded S word. Now, besides the struts, oops, I said it, the design of RSI ships is very angular with a noticeable lack of parallel lines. A surprising amount of structure is also visible. Things appear very mechanical in nature, but also quite clean and purposeful. Despite this, exposed wires, components, and other mechanical bits are littered throughout the interiors of the ships, and everything is labeled and obviously delineated through the use of lines and segmented areas. There are seriously a lot of lines all over RSI ships. It's like an Etch-a-Sketch. The color scheme tends to be very duotone with black and white paneling across the ships. When looking at the exterior of the ships, you'll notice the thrusters are quite discreet and sleek compared to its counterpart, generally given angular cowlings which keep much of the thruster housing hidden. And the shape of RSI ships are often quite long and segmented looking, with an obvious cockpit space followed by a neck and body section of the ship. You can see quite a bit of similarity between some of the ship exteriors. VTOL fans are also used by RSI where possible, adding a mechanical charm to some of their ships. When it comes to the standout ships in RSI, it's an interesting discussion, as RSI's style has changed over the centuries from straight walls to slanted walls and from bulky military designs to more streamlined military design. But one ship really does look like it belongs to some company next to their reclaimer: the Orion mining vessel. It is humanity's premier spatial mining platform, equipped with top-of-the-line mining drones, cutting lasers, tractor beams, storage facilities, and a refinery. The Orion can operate almost entirely self-sustaining and complete the mining and refining cycle all on its own. With roles for up to 6 crew, the Orion is the perfect ship for any size mining organization to make a living and then some. The starter ship of RSI is the Aurora, the most common ship in the game, with over 400,000 owned as of 2018. It is a basic, tiny ship with a good amount of functionality, suited as the perfect first ship for many, and comes with several variations. The Mantis is a powerful little ship that looks like it could come straight out of Star Trek. It's equipped with a quantum interdiction module to allow one player to assist either lawful or unlawful groups in immobilizing and trapping quantum travelers. The Apollo Medivac is a mid-size medical ship, a step above something like the Cutlass Red, but not quite as expansive as the Endeavour. The Apollo comes in 2 variants, one with a bit more armor and weaponry for those more dangerous encounters. It will be a great little respawn location and medical point for org gameplay and combat encounters. The Constellation is arguably the most iconic ship in Star Citizen, the perfect size for 2 to 4 explorers, attackers, traders, or tourers to make the most of a multi-purpose ship. The Connie, as it's called, is one of the most versatile ships in the game and comes with everything you could need to tackle basic cargo hauling, exploration, and just hanging out with friends. The Polaris Corvette is one of the most loved and sought after combat ships in the game. After the initial Vanduul attack in 2945, which occurs in Squadron 42, the Polaris was fast-tracked through development so that the Navy and citizens could protect the outer systems from larger Vanduul fleets. With the Idris moving into a frigate role, the Polaris was needed as the smaller corvette of around 120 to 150 meters. It maintains many of the RSI trademarks while still adopting a much stronger triangular shape in conjunction with its function. It will not be in the first part of Squadron 42 due to its production date. The RSI Pegasus is a 900-meter escort carrier capable of carrying 30 ships behind enemy lines. Not much is known about the ship other than that it will be featured in the second part of Squadron 42. The Bengal carrier is one of the largest military ships available to the UEE and is not available to civilians. It clocks in at about 1 kilometer long and is able to house up to almost 800 crew. The hangar bay is large enough to fit almost an entire Idris inside, and the ship itself hosts 4 size 12 ballistic shipbuster railguns capable of blowing through a Javelin-class destroyer like it was a tin can. It's basically the guy the humans told the Vanduul not to worry about. Between the vast amount of unique hulls and all of their specialized variants, RSI has virtually all possible career paths covered. If you're a fan of utilitarian design, or you can even look past the more basic style of RSI ships, you'll be sure to find a good match with RSI. For over 800 years, they've been aiming to allow citizens to take to the stars and never come back. Don't you think it might be your turn? While these 2 manufacturers are far-reaching in their offerings and utilitarian in their design, there are still 8 other major manufacturers out there for you to discover. One of these companies is sure to be a match for you. Make sure to check out the rest of this series in the top right corner of the video or in the video description, and don't hesitate to hop in my Discord community to discuss the best ships in Star Citizen and which is your favorite. And of course, in order to know when the next episode comes out, make sure to subscribe to Space Tomato.